process of creating a new payment established on a strategy that does not defend the dollar or the euro. And I was wondering if you could confirm that, if you have talked about this with your BRIC colleagues here at the UN. And it was interesting because this news just came days before South Africa sent senior officials to Russia to quote unquote recalibrate the global order. Can you talk about this recalibration of global order that we hear from Russia so often these days? Thank you.
We've been talking about the need to delink us from the dependence on dollar and other foreign Western currencies, long time. And that is not just an issue for Russia, but for many other countries, because we know what happens after EU, US, and some other countries introduced how they call it, health sanctions against Russia. It didn't help them much, but it tells us that they are not reliable. Their financial system is not something that we can rely upon, knowing that they at any time they can switch off or rather swift off the international payment system, that dollar transactions are not reliable anymore. They sanctioned the dollar itself because now the dollar cannot travel to Russia officially. So we have to find ways how to move to a new system of exchanges with countries that are friendly to us, and we need to find this trend has started not with 22nd of February 2022. We've been speaking that we need to de-dollarize the world economy before it, and we want to involve local currencies, countries' currencies more within the trade with Russia. We do it successfully with China, with other countries. We need to come off that narcotic needle that the dollar represents. South Africa senior officials coming to Moscow to discuss the new configuration of the world order. That dialogue goes long time already. Now it intensified with the current events, and BRICS, which South Africa is a member of, is an active participant in these discussions. And of course, BRICS countries like China, South Africa, Brazil, India are elements of this new world polycentric order that is emerging. So I see nothing criminal or suspicious in South Africans traveling to Moscow to discuss this issue. We discuss these issues with the BRICS countries and within the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in other formats regularly.
Thank you, Federal Ambassador. This is Deji Xu with China Central Television. Two quick questions. Now, actually, many media outlets already suspected that Russia is going to abuse the presidency of the Security Council, any response. And we know that a large portion of the council members, they are in one way or another against Russia Federation. In this way, how would you expect to work with them to maintain peace and stability with the what I called mission impossible, which is to show the solidarity and the unity of the Council? Thank you.
There were many articles on that issue. Before our presidency, at a certain point, you remember there was a debate within the Western media and among some Western leaders trying to question our membership in the Security Council and our status as the permanent member. I already answered partly that question, saying that as long as the current world order stays, and the current world order is based on the UN Charter, where it says unequivocally how the UN is organized, including the Security Council, nothing will change. it will still be the same. I think that these articles and these opinions are rather a gesture of despair, rather than something serious and tangible which can affect our work in the Security Council. On our role in the Security Council, as I said, I don't think a single country, and we've heard that even after February, when we were presidents, when the event started, who thanked us at that time for the professional presidency that we demonstrated. We do not abuse the prerogatives of the presidency. One thing is the national position. The second thing is the role of the presidency of the Security Council, which we value and cherish, and we're always trying to maintain it. I remember my first presidency in the Council, which came on the 1st of July 2018, which coincided with the last veto of US in the Security Council. That was Nikki Haley, who was PR at that time. And we were in the consultations room. And there was a procedural issue because at that time US wanted to make an amendment to a resolution on Palestine that was under discussion with its own resolution, as if an amendment, to which I told them, look, I do not want to go into the UK book on the proceedings of the Security Council. I'm sure many of you are aware what it is, very useful reference. On the first day of my presidency, I hate to think about it, so let's behave professionally. So we did, and that simply testifies that we do not abuse the work of the Security Council. Whoever says it is in the least biased. You said that many of our colleagues in the Security Council will be working against Russia. I do not think that will be the case. Today's PR breakfast demonstrated that they are already to go along, and besides, the Security Council is not composed of the P3 and a few other countries that might have such thoughts, which they never betrayed, at least today. And I'm sure they will during our presidency. Let's see at the final press conference after the presidency where you were right or wrong.
Thank you, Fedor. Hi, Ambassador Nebenzia, Carrie Norton from Le Monde. I have two questions. I totally understand your point as the rule of the UN and the monthly presidency, but as you're attached to the credibility of the UN and the values, can you understand normal citizens feel offended that a country can chair the Security Council when its leader is under arrest warrant by the ICC, which is the highest judicial organ of the UN? That's my first question. My second question, you have a lot of issues this month that you're going to review, MINUSMA, UNSMIL, MINURSO. Are there any one where you think there will be any breakthrough? And if so, which one?
You mentioned MINURSA.
There's a lot. There's MINUSMA, UNSMIL, MINURSO. My question is like, what is the most important for you? Do you think there's going to be a breakthrough on one of them?
All files on the Security Council are important to us, but I do not want to make too optimistic statements. I do not expect any breakthroughs on these files, but hopefully, gradually, we will be trying to achieve progress on them. On the credibility and normal citizens, which normal citizens you mean? There are citizens, and they take situation not as they do
Ambassador Nebenzia,
in the Western Europe, and even in the Western Europe, even here in the US. Even here in the US, there are various opinions on the issue, and they are not as straightforward as you mentioned. Now, you said that the International Criminal Court is a part of the International Criminal Court is not the part of the UN. That's point one. I want to make it very clear.
Sorry.
Secondly, I commented on the decision of the International Criminal Court. Besides being stupid, let's put things straight. That is also an illegitimate decision, means null, zero, nothing to us. And I think that those that encouraged that decision, perhaps they already regret they did it. Because, as I said, what they did, it doesn't make us closer to any resolution of the current crisis we are living in. So, on the credibility, that's a debatable question, at least.
Thanks, Ambassador. Here, Betül Yürük with the Turkish news agency Anadolu. The Turkish president recently said that President Putin may visit Turkey on April 27th for the inauguration of Turkey's first nuclear power reactor, which was built by Russian nuclear energy company Rosatom. Has President Putin received an invitation? If so, does he plan to travel to Turkey? Thank you.
That is a question that should be addressed to the presidential administration. I don't know about my president's plans to travel. Well, if President Putin respects President Erdogan and vice versa, as you are very well aware, so I do not exclude it, but I cannot comment on behalf of the president.
Have you heard anything regarding
No,
this visit?
not yet.
Volodymyr Ilchenko, National News Agency of Ukraine, Ukrinform. I am sure you know the history, sir. You know very well that Russia is on the UN Security Council, as well as in the UN as a whole, illegally. Doesn't Russia want to start the process of legalizing its membership in the UN, as all the other newly formed countries did after the former Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, and the Soviet Union ceased to exist? Thank you.
Thank you. You know pretty well that the story is not what our Ukrainian colleagues in the Council, in the mission, are trying to tell us. The story is different, and the seat of the Russian Federation in the Security Council is fully legitimate. We received it after we were recognized as continuators of the Soviet Union, with all the legal name that and obligations that come after it. There was an agreement by all the former members of the Soviet Union, including Ukraine, for that. So you might have noticed that this issue that was sort of hot at a certain point was somehow subsided recently. Nobody is actively raising it because they understand that this is a dead-end road.
Thank you, Ambassador. Stefano Vaccaro, La Voce di New York. Ambassador, we just found out from the spokesperson for the Secretary General that Guterres' plan, actually, when your Foreign Minister Lavrov comes here, to sit down with him. So my question is, what Guterres should say or should propose, should come with something new, so we get closer to peace? And then I have another question, very quick. Many people, including me, in the last months, had nightmares sometimes about nuclear war. Did you have any nightmare lately about that?
On the first question, I feel a bit. I find it a little bit strange you addressing a question on what Antonio Guterres has to say to Minister Lavrov. You seeking that from me. Perhaps you could have asked Stefan or SG himself what he's going to come up forward with. SG was saying, as far as I know, all the time that he would welcome any initiatives that would lead to peace. Secondly, he is ready to facilitate if he is being asked for. So I don't think that he has a particular plan to offer to Minister Lavrov. If that is not the case, let's see when they meet. I'd be I'd be happy if he could come with something tangible and realistic, but I have not heard of any plans by the Secretary General that are being discussed or prepared within the Secretariat or within his office. On the nuclear war, I sleep well because I know that at least us, we are not asking for the nuclear war. We are not threatening nuclear war. All this narrative that Russia is threatening the world with the nukes is a part of a propaganda as well. We've been saying long time consistently that that it is not in our military doctrine, which provides for very few specific cases when the nuclear weapons can be engaged. And that is definitely not the situation which is in our nuclear doctrine.
Ambassador, would you allow
Thank
me
you.
just a very quick
Please.
follow-up on Guterres? For your answer, do you think that Guterres in the last months has been fully, and I would say also in an assertive way, follow his mission as a Secretary General of United Nations, or he should have done, for Russia, should have done more for trying to find a way for peace?
The question whether he followed his duties as the Secretary General of the United Nations is a little bit provocative, because whatever I answered would be used against me, as they say when a person is arrested. But the Secretary General is instrumental in promoting the Black Sea Initiative, which we recognize. At the same time, the Black Sea Initiative is clearly one-sided, not because of his fault, but because our Western colleagues claiming that Russian food experts and fertilizer experts are not under sanctions are doing their utmost to block them, basically, which is not in the interests of the countries, including the Western countries, and in particular developing, who are mostly in need of those fertilizers, which might affect the future harvest. That is perhaps the main mission where the Secretary General engaged on Ukraine. Besides that situation in Mariupol, which happened already some time ago, where he was also engaged with, that's basically it. The rest, I cannot provide you with any information on what he could do. Again, I said that he offered his good offices when they are required. And that's where we stand at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador Abdel Hamid Sayam from the Arabic Daily, Al-Quds Al-Arabi. I normally ask you about Palestine, but this time I ask you two different questions. One on sports and one on Syria. On sports, the FIFA debated the participation of Russian soccer teams around the world, and they put conditions on Russia to participate under a neutral flag. 40 members of FIFA said we want to boycott Russian teams, and they left it up to Paris to invite Russia for the Olympic in 2024. However, the same standard did not apply to Indonesia. When Indonesia said, I don't want to receive Israel, immediately it was canceled, and they pulled out the games for under 20. So is there more hypocrisy than that? I want you to address this. And the second, on Syria, Israel almost on daily basis bombed some areas in Syria. 15 Syrians or their friends killed in Kufr Susa. They bombed Aleppo airport, and it was went out of service. Same thing with Damascus airport. And almost on every day there is some kind of Israeli raids in Syria. However, Russia is in almost, at least we say, control of the space. They have the radar, they have the capacity. what do you tell the Israeli? You have good friendship with Israel. You have good relations. Why you don't tell them stop bombing Syria? Thank you.
We tell them stop bombing Syria.
But they don't
including
listen.
in the Security Council. Of course, that is inadmissible, what they're doing. They're claiming that they are bombing the Iranian presence in Syria, like the US does, by the way. I recall the recent briefing of deputy spokesperson of the UN, who was unable to answer about the Syrian the US presence in Syria. That was, how would I put it diplomatically? I'd better refrain from commenting. I think you heard it all yourselves. We do, but unfortunately, this is a long-time Israeli practice. That does not just concern Syria alone, but Lebanon as well, and other states which Israel considers to be its immediate danger. As I said, that's inadmissible. That's not only us who speak about it, but we speak perhaps most vocally. Now, on sports, recently, well, you asked about hypocrisy. There is a lot of hypocrisy in this world and a lot of double standards. But I was struck by a comment made by the chair of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach, recently, who said a few things on the Paris Olympics. First, no Russian teams are allowed to participate, whatever they are. Team sports are prohibited. Secondly, athletes who not associate, but who support the Russian military operation are prohibited to participate. Besides being the witch hunt, I have a question: how they will be singling out those athletes that support or do not support military operation. Somebody was saying to me, you have a sports club which is called CSKA, which is the Central Sports Club of the Army. And indeed, when it was established long time ago, it was the Army Club in the Soviet times. Today, it's a commercial enterprise, just bearing the same name. So, is it the criteria? What is the criteria? That looks miserable, frankly. The way the Olympic Committee, FIFA, I don't think they make a condition on wearing or non-wearing the insignia, the emblems or whatever. I think that they simply exclude, at least UEFA excluded us from the international competitions. On FIFA and on the future World Cup, they excluded that from this one. What will happen to the next, I don't know. But I don't think they condition it on a neutral status. I haven't heard about it, at least.
Thank you. It was for me. Okay. Hi, my name is Ibtisam Azem, Al Arabi Al Jadid newspaper. I have first a quick follow-up on the Russian fertilizers. You said that you hope that there will be a breakthrough. Could you please elaborate what does a breakthrough for you mean? And then my questions, one about Western Sahara, whether you met with Mr. de Mistura, if you could shed more lights on that. And my last question is in Syria and the issue of, as you know, the Secretary General suggested establishing a mechanism for the forcibly disappeared. And there was, in Syria, and there was a meeting last week, I think, in the General Assembly, and your country opposed such a mechanism. But a lot of families of people who forcibly disappeared, whether their loved one were disappeared in the regime presence or the opposition, are saying that they are not getting information, their life is put on hold, and they are asking for such a mechanism. And the UN is saying that this is a humanitarian mechanism and not a political. So what do you say to these families who cannot even have paper issued about their inheritance or about travel or register their children all over Syria and all the different places. Thank you very much.
On fertilizers, what will be a breakthrough? A breakthrough will be the implementation of the second part of the deal, which has not been implemented since the beginning, since the 22nd of July, and now more than 8 months that nothing was happening, despite all the efforts. So that will be the breakthrough. De Mistura, Staffan is briefing the Council later in April, and he will be, I know that he's thinking about something, which he does not betray. Let's hear him at the Council, him and the chief of SRSG, Ivanko of Minurso. I cannot provide you with anything of a breakthrough here, because we don't know what the plan of the personal envoy is and what the reaction of the Council will be. On the mechanism on possibly disappeared, you said that it is strictly humanitarian. Nothing is strictly humanitarian about Syria. It's as political as this independent how do you call it, Triple IM, the independent impartial and whatever mechanism on Syria, which proved to be as independent as it can be. I think that the same will happen to this mechanism as well. It will be another instrument and element for political pressure on Syria. You cannot create a mechanism on something that happens in the country without the consent of the country concerned. That's the principle that works everywhere, only with the exception for a few countries, Syria included. So we've been here for an hour. What do you think? It's time for lunch.
A couple of last questions.
Joseph Klein of Canada Free Press. This is a two-part question relating to North Korea. In your national capacity, can you either confirm or deny recent reports that Russia is considering a trade with North Korea in which North Korea would send arms to Russia in exchange for food? And in your capacity as president of the Security Council this month, how would you evaluate such an exchange under existing Security Council resolutions? Thank you.
What a question! What an exchange is my question. I mean, we have reports in the press which were never verified. These are at present allegations, not something that we can discuss as a done deal. We have a committee, sanctions committee on North Korea, and a group of experts that is to investigate these things. So far, these are allegations, so I don't know what to comment on.
The last question.
Thank you, Ambassador. Just a couple follow-ups, really, on the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Okay, so you're saying nothing is happening despite efforts. So what is your benchmark to say that the MOU is working for you? It certainly can't be 100% of your pre-war food and fertilizer exports, because even Ukraine isn't achieving that with their end of the deal. So just give us a tangible, concrete number, because it's really very unclear what you expect. And then also just a second follow-up, sorry, on Secretary Blinken. You said he has to ask Lavrov for a meeting or request a meeting. Does that mean Minister Lavrov would have no interest in meeting with Mr. Blinken of his own initiative?
I didn't say that Secretary Blinken has to ask Minister Lavrov about a meeting. I said that if there is a willingness to meet and we know about it, I'm sure that Minister Lavrov will never reject such a meeting.
About willingness from your side.
Sorry?
But what about willingness from your side? Why couldn't you initiate
Look,
it?
I will invoke and refer to one situation during the last high-level debate when there should have been a regular meeting of the P5 with the Secretary General, a traditional meeting that happens every GA. And at that time, I think US was the coordinator. And I must tell you that in the P5, there was one country that was strongly for that meeting. There were two countries, I'm sure you can easily guess, that one country, US, initially said that they might consider it, but then withdrew. There was one country that was against that meeting. We were not insisting. It's a tradition, not an obligation, and the meeting didn't take place. That means, and then we heard numerous comments from the US officials that it is beyond their dignity to meet the Russian officials. So in these circumstances, do you expect us to beg Secretary Blinken for a meeting? If he asks for a meeting for whatever reason, I will not speak for Minister Lavrov, but I know, knowing him a little bit, I'm sure that he will not refuse such meetings. But otherwise, what's the point? You asked about the benchmarks for the Black Sea initiative to work. I said earlier that we have not a single grain exported according to the memorandum of Russia and UN, the second part of the deal. We had fertilizers that were arrested in some European ports, Baltics and I think Belgium and Netherlands, at least one of them, that we offered to deliver to the developing countries who need them free of charge. Out of the total number, which amounts to nearly 300,000 tons of fertilizers, only 30,000 tons were exported or rather evacuated from one of those ports. Still are on the way to the country that requested these fertilizers to be delivered. So these are mere facts which say how the grain deal, or rather the Black Sea Initiative, is working or rather not working. I really thank you for your time, and I didn't want to steal your lunch. And I will see you often this month, and we will do a wrap-up. I will try to do a wrap-up with you like I will do with the member states as well. Come to the stakeout. I'll do my best.